Nuance here. Steve Sedgwick is at the NATO summit in Turkey and joins us now with more. Steve, it's great to see you again, albeit in these circumstances. I caught a little bit of what your report was last hour, but wow, have we had some fireworks already from this NATO summit?
Yeah, it is quite extraordinary. Look, the European leaders were ready for something. They just didn't expect this. There is no doubt about it. Kelly, Joe, I've had the privilege of speaking to 13 NATO leaders before the president spoke today as well. And not one of them thought that this was on the agenda. Yes, they thought that Spain was going to get it because of their support for the United States during the war and their lack of ability to get to 5% as well. Yes, we thought Greenland might be somewhere. We had a hint of that yesterday, and I can talk about that a little bit later on if you want. Defence spending, they were ready for that. They were ready and have been having huge amounts of spending commitments cited in the last 24 hours in order to head the president off on that. And Iran, they were ready for criticism over Iran, but only over what NATO had and hadn't done to support the president. But they were not ready for what the president had to say. Let's listen to what he had to say about this MOU, then I'll explain a bit more detail.
I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Let's go through some of the details. The MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding. It's called the Islamabad MOU, but it's actually signed perhaps portentously in Versailles with President Macron next to the president on the 17th of June. It was many, many things, including 1, to provide an end to military strikes, 2, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, 3, end the blockade, 4, have a 60-day extension of the ceasefire, also potentially take those sanctions off Iranian products, which we know now going back on. That came in on the 21st of June as well. But it pretty much, this statement from the president, and look, Joe knows better, the president, than any of us there as well. He does shoot off the hip as well. But the question is this now policy that the Memorandum of Understanding is negated as well? And how have European powers been reacting to it as well? Well, I can tell you that a lot of them were actually thinking, look, we can help out. We can redeem the situation regarding Iran by offering to help demine, to have surveillance, to have radar, to have our big capability in the region. For instance, the French have got the Charles de Gaulle, which is a great big aircraft carrier not too far off this region as well, willing to help police the reopening of this vital seaway, which, just to remind our viewers, I'm sure they all know by now, but up to 20 million barrels a day of oil, around about 20% of global supply, went through this area before the war. And of course, it's just slowed to a trickle during the war, and since then has picked up a little bit as well. But blindsided on this issue, absolutely all the leaders here. They thought they were going to get a lot of criticism on other fronts, and they got that as well. We can talk about that later if you want as well. But on this one, I think they're all running around now working out what to do next.
Steve, I still don't see this as a full-fledged return to the kind of hostilities that we saw at the beginning of this conflict. Maybe it will. I don't know. But it almost seems like there's room being left on both sides to maybe return to the table. I don't know. And I don't know if that's the right move for the United States. Some people think that, all right, we've seen enough. Let's go full bore. We went from, I think we referred to some of the stuff as love taps after, you know, we had to do a sort of a tit for tat a couple of times, Iran as well. But it just doesn't seem like it's you know, full bore. Maybe that's coming. Any idea about that?
Yeah, and look, the president did say that the negotiators are welcome to carry on. And these are really high-power players, by the way, in the negotiators. We're talking about the Pakistanis, we're talking about Saudi, Qatar, Turkey, the host here, and Egypt. And one thing that's really interesting, and I actually spoke to the Greek Prime Minister about this because of the friction between Turkey and Greece historically, that I know our viewers know about this one as well, is that Turkey and President Erdogan are very high in the estimation of the president as well, which is really rare, isn't it? Because he has quite a bit of, dare I say it, disdain for a lot of European leaders and the support he's been getting. So actually Erdogan being one of the negotiating parties, the Turks being a negotiating party, and this event being here in Ankara, that may have some significance as well. But as you quite rightly said, the president has said, look, the negotiators are very, very welcome to carry on. One thing I want to remind viewers as well is it's only in the last 7 days that the former former Ayatollah has been buried, and there was this enormous outpouring of grief on the streets of Tehran, which, again, got a lot of international airwaves as well. So it was almost inevitable that some form of emotional outpouring from Tehran, from the government there, would spill over into something else as well. It's almost as if they felt they needed to make a statement of intent after all that public grieving as well. In the meantime, some of their negotiators have been getting criticism from Tehran as well about acquiescing too much in any future deal with the US as well. So it was always going to be a volatile week from the Tehran point of view. Perhaps that's why they've been quite proactive on the military front. And of course, the US, as you say, had its action back again. But I agree with you. I don't think we're there yet in terms of a full-fledged return to the conflict. Other aspect which will be interesting is what are the Israelis doing as well. And at the moment, nothing.
In the financial, the carrot part of having those oil revenue, which I thought, there was a feeling that, wow, they'd see that and say, hey, this is pretty good. Maybe we could actually improve our economy and help the people of Iran out a little bit. But see, I don't know if that is high on the list of things that this regime really cares about. But immediately, putting sanctions back on, I don't know how easy it is to do that. These aren't half measures, but I don't think they're full measures at this point. They could come at any time. And then I don't know what it does to oil. See, I'm also kind of thinking that oil always knows, and we questioned it before. Why wasn't it going higher? Why is it coming down? And it always seemed to have the right idea, right interpretation about the events. And if it does again, this doesn't look like a full return to just all-out war.
Yeah. Look, I'll take the first point about the financial incentives. This is a regime, and Trump's right, it's a murderous regime. It's a theocratic regime that kills its own people, its own democratic protesters on the streets at the start of this war. And you'll remember those famous comments from the president as well, saying, look, help is coming. It's come in a different kind of form, perhaps to help some of those looking for democracy on the ground. But this is a regime that thinks financially at least second, maybe third, but first of all about survival. Of course, one of the talked about aims of Operation Epic Fury was regime change at the time. And the president said, look, we have had a regime change, but it is still pretty much the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary National Guard, plus the Ayatollah's theocratic regime, which is still in place as well. So they haven't had regime change. What they want is survival, and finances, dare I say it, comes a little bit further down the list. Now, the financial incentives, the carrot, as you were talking about, Joe, absolutely enormous as well. We're talking about the end of sanctions, the ability to export its product freely around the world, and frozen assets as well. There are hundreds of billions of dollars of frozen assets held in Western bank accounts that actually they want to get their hands on, as you quite rightly say, to rebuild their economy. But when you're talking about theocrats, Ayatollahs who are looking at survival, I think the financial aspect comes a little bit later.